you've been trying to solve a problem of losing weight and you've been trying really hard by reducing your intake. And what your body is actually saying is like, could you listen? I need help. I need fixing. We've been trying to solve a problem with the wrong goal, the wrong approach. And in doing that on repeat, we've actually been worsening the issues that were ultimately driving it. That's why it feels so hard. I will never tell someone this is simple. I will never tell somebody this is easy. I will also never tell you that it goes away. And I think that's an important piece. This is something that we have to learn to do, and it becomes the work of how we keep our bodies healthy.
Okay, Everygirls, I want you to take a deep breath before we start this episode, because what you are about to hear is likely going to change the way you think about your body and will probably be the answer to questions you've struggled with for years. I am joined by dietitian and bestselling author Ashley Koff. She's not just any dietitian, she was named Hollywood's leading nutritionist by InStyle and one of CNN's top 100 health makers. She's appeared on everything from The Today Show to Good Morning America, and today she's on the Everygirl podcast to help you finally get over your weight struggles once and for all. You will get tons of actually helpful tips about the real reason you're not at the weight you want to be at and how to eat, move, and think in order to get there. But this conversation is also extremely profound because we're dismantling the huge myths that we've all been told about weight. Ashley and I talk about the hormones that control fat storage and why most of us were never taught about them, the trillion-dollar diet industry and how it's lied to us, why counting calories will not help you lose weight, and the surprising factor that matters more to your weight loss goals than your macros, and that includes protein. Ashley even shares deeply personal stories from being bullied as a child to trying every cleanse and diet imaginable, so you know that it isn't just science, it's lived experience. If you have ever struggled with losing weight, wanted to be in a body you feel good in without restricting, thought to yourself, why does this work for everyone except me? Or tied your worth to a number on the scale, I have a feeling this episode is going to be a major turning point in your life. Welcome Ashley Koff to the Everygirl podcast.
My 5-year-old nephew told me this. He goes, well, you're a doctor. And I go, well, no, I am an RD and there's a DR. And he goes, you're a backwards doctor. And I go, oh my God, like you've just summed up my 25 years of my career identity crisis.
I mean, dietitians are so important and so educated and so smart, but I just feel like you go so above and beyond what a dietitian normally does. Like you address a lot more than nutrition.
Mm-hmm. You know what? There's a lot of us that are trained like this now. When I was trained, so I'm 25 years into this, like very, very few. And I think one of the interesting things is a lot of us got into becoming the RD, not the DR, because I was like, I want a different toolkit. I'm going to look at things in a different way. And I really think that, you know, in this space, in the weight health space, I actually don't think doctors are well equipped. I think they can be part of a team, but I really think that that's been a huge part of the problem. I will personally say that it was my problem. So maybe I'm still trying to say like to all those doctors who, 10 or 15 years were like, you're healthy. You just have a weight problem. You just need to eat differently. This might be a little bit of my middle finger to them. So just acknowledging that. Yeah. Sorry.
I love that. No, I'm so with you. I'm so with
totally.
you. So Ashley, I want to start with kind of a big reframe that I think is really necessary to have. In your book, you write, weight challenges aren't a failure of willpower or discipline. What do you mean by that? And how is this understanding changing the weight loss conversation?
Yeah. If we search our entire body, you will never find willpower as a muscle. Like it's not there. There's also, and something I teach physicians especially about, is the myth of the non-compliant patient. I have to express and like stand for all of us. We are not trying. Like if anything, I have tried everything. I have tried a goat's milk cleanse. Like you cannot tell me, right, that like I'm not trying. The issue that we've had is we haven't had a goal set based on our physiology. And when we do look at the body and we decode the body and we start to explore how our operating system works, we have weight health hormones. We have GLP-1, GIP, CCK, PYY, amylin, oxymodulin, adiponectin. Like I could keep going on. I didn't learn about any of these in school. And I also will say most physicians didn't. Today we know about them. And I think that that's why we just need an entire reframe, because you don't go onto a football field and give somebody a playbook for playing NBA basketball. We have just been in a place where you don't shoot and score the same way. And I think that's really important for us to shift.
Really important to shift, because weight is so integrated with almost like value, obviously in our world for women, but also in the sense that, we think if we aren't in control of our weight, it's a personal failure, right? We're like, oh, it's because you don't have motivation, you don't have willpower, you don't have control over your cravings. Like it's a personal failure instead of a symptom of our bodies or how our bodies are reacting to something. It's a personal failure. So, for a lot of reasons, but especially like you said, I think we have to shift the way that we think about it so that the conversation of weight is no longer about value, most importantly, but also so it's not a personal failure if you're dealing with weight related issues or want to change your weight.
Yeah, I think that's so key. I recall kind of the first time I felt bullied, and not felt, I experienced bullying. I had a kid take me out back. He was telling me I was fat and he punched me in my belly. And up until then, I'd been this 8-year-old and maybe I'd been teased for having a belly or, whatever, thighs that rubbed together, that kind of thing. But I was so cute and I was also like big. Like I was big in personality. I was strong, had this curly hair and I was bossy and I was smart in school. And mostly likable, maybe when I was being a little too bossy. When he hit me, I realized I have a weakness. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get rid of that weakness. And the bullying, like it would continue. Kids are not nice. And by the way, we probably are not nice about a lot of things. Someone's skin, somebody's accent, somebody's hair, like any of this stuff. The bullying I did to myself every time I tried something is like on another level. When you say that we talked about ourselves as a personal failure, like there is nothing else like this. Like I could fail a test in school. I'm going to use an example. I was like kind of nerdy. I didn't fail tests, but I could not know how to like fix a car, or do something else. And I would just be like, oh, like, I don't know how to do that. Oh, maybe I should learn, and maybe I should get someone to help me or whatever. Oh, no, no, no. If I tried a diet and my friend tried a diet and my friend lost weight and I didn't, number one, I was mad at her. And then I was really mad at myself, and I'm like, why can't I just get it? And to the point where I even tried having eating disorders. I saw myself as a failure when I couldn't binge and purge effectively, or I couldn't be anorexic. So I think for literally, I'll borrow your name, like for every girl, and I will say today it's every boy, and it's come on real fast, real strong for boys. But for all of us out there, one of the reasons I want us to break up with weight loss is, well, it's actually a twofold reason. Number one, your total weight is meaningless as it relates to your health, completely meaningless. It doesn't tell me anything and it's not any value about you. Second of all, when we try to lose weight, especially when we feel like we have excess or it's clear that we have excess fat, when we try to lose weight, we actually further worsen how our body is functioning because we reduce the resources that it gets. And we also don't fix the biological problems, the physiological problems that are going on there. So there's no wonder that there's a $1 trillion diet industry because every time we go on one, we actually set ourselves up for the next one. It's like a brilliant, scheme in that regard. It just doesn't work well for us as people.
Oh my God, yes. And I'm so glad you called that out because so much of it is marketing. And I am a big, call it conspiracy theory, whatever, but I'm a big believer of like, they need women to be insecure. They need us to find things that never work so that we're always buying something new. But when you say that we don't have the tools to like heal what's actually going on there, what do you mean by that? What does that actually look like? And why does trying to lose weight actually negate those goals instead of help us get there?
Perfect. And Josie, I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually started my career in advertising, selling sugared cereals to people and also selling them hair color and also selling diamonds. So it's not a conspiracy theory. This is like what I learned how to do. And like I was really good at it. I'm like, oh, let's have a woman who's in tears about, I recall this one very specifically. This was right about before I left. But she was in tears on her third breakup and it was like, oh, hair color 77. And I remember my job was to write down what she said about her hair color. She had her new hair color and she goes, oh, I really think he's going to love it. I don't think this one's going to leave me. And I'm like, from the outside in, right? And I sat there and I was like, I'm out. I took my marketing chops to work in public education. And it's ultimately what led me here to like market better nutrition. And I think one of the reasons we have to think about that is that, interestingly, when I made that next switch, the next place that I went was the Kaiser Family Foundation. And I marketed a campaign how to help parents talk to their kids about tough issues because we had data that when young girls didn't like their bodies or felt like their bodies weren't good, et cetera, they were going to participate in risky behaviors earlier on. So we know this, right? So when we put all of this together, this is why we're talking about it. So what do I mean by it worsens it? Well, number one, I talk about this in terms of a pizza. So we all know a pizza is crust, sauce, and cheese. And our crust is digestion and hydration. If your digestion or your hydration is suboptimal in any way, you will not have weight health. So I just want to restate that. If you have any digestive or hydration suboptimal function, not dysfunction, but suboptimal function, you won't have weight health. If I am gassy, if I am bloated, if I am not pooping, if I am pooping too often, if I have difficulty pooping, if I have liquid poop or stringy poop, or if I have dried poop, if I have skin issues because I'm not eliminating and as a result I'm having acne, if I have microbiome issues, if I have bad breath, all of these things are symptoms of my digestion not working better that we know we're all like band-aiding and covering up with like makeup and these others. And hydration, if I'm drinking water but I'm peeing it out, I'm not absorbing it, it's not everywhere that it needs to be in the body. If those things are suboptimal, then anything that I take in, and this is what the doctor that ultimately changed my life and the trajectory of my career said, Ashley, it's not what you're eating or what you're not eating, because at that point I was avoiding a lot of stuff. It's that your body doesn't have what it needs to run better. So when we think about weight loss, it's that your body doesn't have what it needs to run better. Now, you might be taking it in, you might be eating kale and salmon and chickpeas and, like all these great things, but maybe your digestion isn't breaking it down, or maybe it's not moving at the right pace, or it's not getting where it's supposed to go, or when it gets where it's supposed to go, the body isn't able to use it. It's not recognizing it. There's issues. Maybe inflammation is going on and it's blocking it. There are all these things for us to unpack. So we can't call a food healthy and then just say like, why am I not healthy? And that's what I used to do, right? I used to sit there with my like Jenny Craig meals and be like, well, I've been told this is healthy for me. By the way, on a scale of 1 to 10 on my deliciousness test, it was like a 2. So not only was I not actually even activating my own satiety hormones because it wasn't delicious, but I was told it was healthy, right? I'm eating healthy choice meals. And I'm like, oh, well, it's healthy for me. No, my body decides what's healthy when it actually breaks it down, absorbs it. And for many of us women, you might be like me and have been on antibiotics. I was on antibiotics my whole childhood. It's a little bit different now, but ear infections, throat infections. I was on birth control because I had really difficult periods, probably tied to my suboptimal digestion, probably some of it hormonal. I was later given medications and I tried all these topical things for skin issues that then erupted. I then was having panic attacks and anxiety issues. So at that point, they're like, we're going to put you on medication. I'm like, no, 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 no. But I tried all of these other things, right? I'm like, I'm going to remove gluten. I'm going to remove, like all of that different stuff. My system was like, I'm not working better. You're not fixing me. And that's what ends up happening in that weight loss space when we reduce carbs, we remove carbs, we shorten the window that we're eating, we freebase protein because we're told that like protein is like so good for us. And so we're like, okay, I'm going to have 100 grams of protein, but my body's not breaking it down and absorbing it. And now it's causing inflammation and it's causing more of the issues. So it may feel complex. It's actually very simple. We have to lean into what are the signals the body is giving us and then start with repairing those, not just saying like, how do I lose weight?
This is really revolutionary for, I think, the vast majority of people. We really grew up learning calories in, calories out is all you need to worry about. Download MyFitnessPal, make sure you're not eating too many calories, figure out your metabolic rate to see how many calories you're burning, burn that many calories at the gym, like everything about weight loss from even health class when I was in 5th grade. This is what we learned about weight it's about the calories you intake and the calories you burn. So to say it actually has nothing to do with the calories, it's about how your body's processing those calories.
Mhm.
Why have we been so misled or why have we misunderstood weight for all of these years?
Yeah. And I don't know how old you are. In 2012, I was speaking at Consumer Electronics Show. I think at that point, I'm about 10 years into my practice. I'm 52 now. And so at the time, I think if I can do the math, I was in my early 30s. So I'm on stage there, and it is the introduction of the digital health world. This is the first time we're having a digital health summit. And all these people are super excited. Jawbone is there, Fitbit is there. And it's like, we are going to change health outcomes because we now have these apps and these devices. And so I'm on a panel. It's me, it's Dr. Oz, it's the head of the American Diabetic Association, and it's the head of WebMD at the time, who then went on to found ShareCare. So everybody goes through and they're like, well, this is so amazing. And imagine we can track this and we can track this. And it comes over to me and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, I don't know that we're going to do any better. I'm like, my worry, and out of my mouth is my worry that we are not going to help people get healthier. And actually with access to this, people are going to think because they have this, they can get healthier and that we're going to see more us be less healthy. Okay, foreshadowing. Not just everyone can focus on obesity and we can say processed food and we can say all of its other stuff. But if access to information, data collection, labs, any of this stuff was what was the root cause problem, and we now have all of that, we would not be at a place where in 2025, 93% of Americans don't meet the criteria for metabolic health. So here's the issue. If calories in, calories out was an effective description of how our operating system worked, then we would be where we need to be from a health standpoint. Why did we get there? I think is a little bit complex. Number one, there's a strong motivation by a food industry that kept figuring out how can we bring you what you want, what you tell us you want, because this is what I did in advertising, tell you it's good for you, tell you it's good for the specific part of you. So like on Raisin Bran Crunch, even though we had more sugar than any other cereal at the time, I could put the American Heart Association logo on there because of the fiber on that part, because sugar had nothing to do with, because it was low fat and because of the fiber. So your mouth, like this is just like, so part
It's
of
crazy.
it was marketing was driving, and it was also, I really believe with good intention, just not playing out well, guidelines were being created that were about how we could keep the body or the population from having disease that we knew about, right? We were always working from like a survival or like a, not a thriving, but like this suboptimal level. And I think people didn't have a good way of saying, like, there's a difference. There is a difference with how we treat a road car, a street car, like you or I drive, and a race car. Our bodies are designed like a race car, not a street car. If you take a street car and you put it in a race car race, you're going to have a problem. Why? Because we fill up our gas tank, we fill up the oil, we fill up the air in the tires, and we go run until you don't have any in there. Hopefully, like not till you run out, but run until you don't have any in there, and then we'll go ahead and we'll replenish it. When we do that to our body, which many of us are doing, like I'm going to not have anything during the day and then I'm just going to backload at night. And I'm like, why am I gaining weight or why am I not losing or that kind of thing. When we look at a race car and we come around and we say, race car, got it. I only want to have the amount of gas, air in the tire, oil in the engine, and I don't want to have anything else in the car because I want to be as light and efficient. I'm going to run 3 laps. I'm going to come, or however many, I'm going to come around, stop. I'm going to pit stop, and I'm going to do it all over again. That's how our body works. So when we give our body excess, or when it doesn't have enough of what it needs optimally, it's going to suboptimally function. So there's 2 sides of the coin. The digestion part that we were talking about, which is we have to be able to use what we're getting, but then also the time frame in which we give our body what it needs. And so remember I talked about the crust. The sauce in the pizza is going to be our better nutrition. And instead of calories in, calories out, it's 4 pillars. So it's the quantity, how much we consume at one time. If we go to the gas station and the gas tank is on full and we put gas in there, guess what happens? It spills. That's wasteful and it might be dangerous. So that's going to happen in our body. So we have to basically not give it more than it needs at one time. And then the second part is the quality of it. I always say you can't fry an egg on a gas stove with a paper plate. You need a frying pan. And if you look at that, they both are circular, right? Without a handle, they're both circular. And so many times we're like giving the body something and we're like, it's a circle. It should recognize it. It might be a circle, but it's not going to give it what it needs. When your body has a diet soda, it might get that circle and be like, oh, I just got something sweet. Yay. But then it goes, wait, you didn't give me any calories, like nothing to work with. And for me, a lot of my diet history that I would see with my patients was a diet soda in the middle of the afternoon for energy and because of the caffeine and also because I don't want to stop to have something. Your body wanted you to stop at that point. We need a balance of nutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and making sure that we get fiber and other things in with it. And when we look at that balance, those things they're like the air in the tire, the oil in the engine, the gas in the gas tank. So if we only have one, if we only have protein, which by the way, no food in nature is just a protein. So that's like kind of moot. You would just be having protein powder. But if you only had like say protein and fat and you don't have any carbs, then the body's like, ooh, I didn't get my quick energy. It could work. It could definitely work. But over time, things are going to catch up. And then the timing really matters. We want to make sure that we're giving our body calories when we're active, not when we're about to be inactive or not when we are inactive. And so we really want to look at this caloric activity window. And then we also want to respect that we have a recovery window. And then within our caloric and activity window, we want to be pit stopping about every 3 hours. So a lot of times I have people today who are intermittent fasting and they're not giving their body anything in the morning, but that's like your key activity time period, right? That's when I'm like, I'm getting up, maybe I'm exercising, maybe I'm going to work, I'm doing whatever. But then we're giving it calories at like, say, 6 or 7, 8 or 9. And the body's like, wait a second, I'm going into my recovery mode. Now you've given me more work to do. So when we look at the 4 pillars of better nutrition, we really have to come in and say, calories in, calories out was this design of like, they kept trying to market with this idea that it just needs to be simpler. Like if we just tell those people, I was always told this. I was told this in TV, I was told it in magazines, I was told it in my coursework. You know what? You really need to make it simpler for people. People are like sixth graders. You need to make it simpler. You know what? When I tell the 5-year-old in my house this and I explain, here's why we're having this, they're like, I got it. Or when I use the pizza analogy, or when we go over a race car versus a street car, I understand we can't make it complicated, but we also can't make it wrong. And when we oversimplified it, we made it wrong. And I think that's what we're paying for today.
I get it. That's how marketing works.
Sure.
But also, it does such a disservice to ourselves to not be the expert of our own bodies.
Right.
We deserve to be the expert of our own bodies. So, simplifying our body to a point that it's incorrect obviously doesn't serve anyone, but also, like, we should care a lot about how our body is operating and working and learning about that. That's a really interesting background. You talking about the timing, fascinating. Tell me more about this. Does that mean we should never work out fasted? What kind of food should we eat before movement? Does that also mean, just when we're getting up and going about our day? Or does it have to be a exercise? When should we not be eating? Like, tell me about this.
Yeah, love it. The first thing is there is no rule for everybody, and there is no rule for one person at all time in your life. So if you're underslept, your body may need nutrition right away because your body, from a fatigue standpoint, is otherwise going to call out for carbohydrates because it's fatigued, right? And so in order to avoid going down the rabbit's hole of like, I ended up really overeating on carbohydrates, oftentimes for the sugar, it's like, today is going to be the day I'm going to have the mocha, where I always get like a plain Americano, right? Or whatever. That might be different if you're underslept versus, say, if you had a good night's sleep, et cetera. In terms of working out fasted or not, it really will be a little bit of a life stage issue. I'm more of a proponent of having some resources in the body before you work out. And I think a lot of it has to do with digestion. So a lot of the reason people don't want to have stuff in their body is they feel like they're not digested when they go to work out. Connect with any pro athlete, and when you're in training, I've never had a client that's like, oh, I'm going to exercise without having any nutrients in. Like when we're demanding of our body, there is that side of it. But the other side of it is, could you take a walk? Absolutely. Could you maybe lift some weights? Could you do like maybe a little bit more of a mellow yoga class for you, or these kinds of things? Yeah, it's not a hard and fast. I believe in better, not perfect. Like it's not a hard and fast rule on that part. The mistake will happen is trying to, and we can always test, and this is, I think, a key part of it. We can assess how things are working for you. So if you're fasting, and either you get injured or you're ravenous after you eat, after you exercise, or your blood sugar, if we're tracking it, is we're seeing issues with your blood sugar, or if you are not building muscle and you're not losing fat, then I'm going to look at what you're eating as it relates to your exercise. That's going to be a core piece. And then if your digestion isn't optimal, then we play around with what could I, and this is where we're in modern day, like we're talking about total nutrition. Maybe I lean into some supplements. Maybe I have you have some amino acids. Like I'm a big fan of glutamine or maybe creatine or some of this. Maybe we have a little bit of that before your workout, or we get something in a liquid form, something that's easy on your digestion and it's a smaller amount so that the body actually is like, okay, I have some resources. And now when I finish, I'm not going to feel like I'm at such a deficit that I can't do what it is you're wanting me to do, which is repair muscle, burn fat. And I think the timing piece is also one to really pay attention to, depending on, we've got to optimize our sleep. I think one of the biggest wake-up calls for women of all ages is that we have this sense that sleeping is this like do nothing time. Like we get under the covers and we go to sleep and like, boy, do we really need to recover, but like, that's it. You turn off, right? We have this belief that this is when we finally turn off, because as women, we don't really ever turn off during the day. It's a flaw that like, I think many women can learn from men to be a little bit more open to some do nothing time, some just on that part. So I think that what we have to acknowledge is that your body has at least the same amount of items on its to-do list while you're sleeping as it had on its to-do list during the day. Every time we're underslept, that could be the quality of our sleep and that could be the duration, we're not getting those items on the to-do list done. So one of the things that I often do is I reset somebody's caloric and activity window to optimize what gets done in their recovery window. And this will show up at very important times in our lives. This will show up around if the intention of fertility at a time in life is to have a baby, is to get pregnant, it will show up there. If we're ever in a process of healing from a disease or an illness or anything else, it will show up there. And it will definitely show up in perimenopause and menopause, where the body is going to just basically bring you the receipts and be like, you know what, you're asking me to do like a lot extra right now. And if you are not letting me get my recovery stuff done, like I'm not going to deliver for you. When we focus on the timing of eating, just going to be blunt, we have marketed and we have dietized that. If I don't even know if that's a word, but we have diet industried it to be like, oh, you should, even as I love to fast like a girl, I love that it was like, okay, let's definitely not take a men's approach to fasting. But even in the girl side of it, we cannot be thinking about fasting as a way to lose weight because we are still at the wrong goal on that part. So if we are looking at weight health and we're saying, what does my body need to optimize muscle, to optimize bone, to put water where it's supposed to be extra and intracellularly, and to not put fat where it doesn't belong or where it would be in excess, we've got to look at our sleep and we've got to look at our caloric activity window with a very focused approach. Now, how you do that, that's why I wrote a playbook. I was like, here are the questions I would ask around timing because our body is going to give us signals. I think that's my favorite piece of all of this. Our body gives us signals, we just have to decode it.
Caloric intake window means literally what it sounds like of when you're eating food and when you're not.
So this is why I had to call it caloric window. Because where do we take in calories today? I had people who were like, oh, I put these things in my coffee. And I was like, oh, you're actually getting calories because the mushroom coffee that you're having or, the powder that you're adding in there is actually adding some calories. I had a client who was like, I fast until 1 p.m., this guy. And I was like, okay. And I went through and he's like, I do gummy creatine, I do this, I do that. And I was like, you're not fasting from 5:30 in the morning. I actually had to start his fasting window later. I was like, can we please not have something until 7? So my lexicon, my choice of words these days is because as a practitioner, I recall working with someone early on in my career who said he was a vegetarian. And I kept looking I must have looked like 5 times at his food journal. It's like, why am I seeing chicken? Like it's chicken strips, it's chicken, like it was everything. And I came back and I asked him, he goes, oh yeah, I just have plants in the day and I have chicken at night. And I was like, okay, that's a new kind of vegetarian. It became a thing for a while. It was vegetarian until 6. But I was like, I didn't know. And I was making all these assumptions about him. So shame on me, but I was making his assumptions about what his nutrition needs might be and how we were going to get his protein in without realizing that he was actually having a lot of chicken like every single day. So I think sometimes I use terms caloric window because your multi might be providing you calories if it's a powder or a gummy or, whatever it is.
That totally makes sense. There's so many ways we're consuming calories that
Right.
are not food that we're not aware of. And I know it's so individual for every body, but do you notice any commonalities of maybe like front ending protein versus 2 hours before bed, lowering calories, like anything like that?
Absolutely. Okay. And the truisms, and I go through the guidelines in my book, they're easy ones to say, this is where we could start with. All right. So you probably need 8 to 10 ounces about every 3 hours of water, to be able to get that in. And having it regularly, pit stopping for it is going to be better for your body than trying to have a large amount at one time. You probably need to move about every 3 hours. And that movement needs to be a variety of challenging your muscles, moving your body cardiovascularly, and also moving your midsection. You'll notice right now I'm not starting with food intentionally. And we probably need to step away from our devices and not have our eyes focused on something digital at minimum every 3 hours. So then we can come into the food side of things, but I actually don't look at it as food. I call it total nutrition. So it's your food, your beverages, and your supplements. So we're thinking about your nutrition in that space. And for most of us, remember, there's no food in nature that exists as protein alone. So when you're making your protein choice, unless it's just amino acids that we're getting in, or unless it's just a protein powder that's been isolated or concentrated to just give the protein, or say collagen powder, right? Like just the collagen. When we're getting in protein, we want to know, am I getting carbs with it? Am I getting fat with it? Or am I getting both, all 3 nutrients? And at that time, I'll usually say for most women at most life stages, focus on trying to get something in within about 2 hours of waking up. And it really depends a little bit on how active you are from when you wake up and what your sleep was like, a little bit what your digestion is like also. So we'll look at that. And then at each of those pit stops, we want a minimum of 15 grams of protein. So like gone are the days where you grab a bar that says protein bar, and those are all, they had like six,
It's like
eight.
8 grams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids ones today still do. They're so low. So a minimum of 15 grams of protein. And ideally that's not 3 beef sticks, right? Like, hey, can I get this from a diversity? But a minimum of 15 up to 30 grams. Now, if you go higher than 30 grams, you need to justify to me that your digestion can handle it. And also that this isn't an issue of I'm having the same forms of protein, so I don't need different amino acids. And some of it'll have to do with size, and some of it'll have to do with blood sugar and these other pieces, but use 15 to 30 grams. And then use the same window for carbohydrates. Fit at minimum of 15 grams of carbohydrate, and we probably don't want to exceed 30 grams. Now, can you go a little lower on carbohydrates? Yes, but where the rubber meets the road is that non-starchy vegetables are really good sources of carbohydrate. They just tend to be low for the overall quantity. So, if you're putting spinach and mushrooms and things like that in your omelet, you're going to get some carbohydrate in there. So 15 grams can happen pretty quickly and can also not be challenging on the body in terms of how much blood sugar. That's different than, say, 15 grams of coming from apple juice in terms of how quickly. So then the fat place is a little bit interesting. I have a bigger range. I say about 5 to 20 grams. Some people even go as high as 30 grams, just depending on what a meal would look like. When you get no fat, that's not going to be optimal for us. I would say most of the time, anywhere from 5 to 15 grams of fat. And then in all of that delivery, I would love to see 7 grams of what I call fibers with an S on the end. Not fibers with an S, because there are a variety of different fibers. And I want us to get in the variety from a variety of food choices. So now if I say 7 grams, and let's say I was looking at your food journal and I audited and I'm like, you know what, your breakfast is usually 1 or 2 grams of fiber. I'm not going to jump you up to 7 grams immediately. That would be like if I found out you were taking 500 steps, I'm not going to be like, well, you should really get in 10,000 a day. Let's work on like from 500 to 1,000 and see how your body responds. So I think when we look at it, nutrition that way, that's how we can design a pit stop. What's great about that is I haven't given you a right side up pyramid, an upside down triangle. I haven't given you a plate. I haven't said these portions here. I haven't talked about total macros in the day, total calories in the day. And I also haven't said to you that there's a distinction between the size of what you're having or the form of what you're having. So I could achieve that with an oat cortado, so made from oat milk, and yes, some seed oils in there, and maybe 2 egg bites. If I was somebody where I'm like over at, going over to Starbucks, egg bites might not get me quite to the protein. So let me say this. Maybe I had my collagen and I added it into my oat milk, and then I have the egg bites or whatever. So I'm closer to 15 grams. I could also take a awesome overnight oats, have the portion size of the oats be right, put some almond butter or peanut butter or nuts and seeds in there. I love hemp seeds. That's going to be great. And we could have it that way. And similarly, dinner could be very large. Like if I wanted to have a whole bunch of different taste from like the whole charcuterie plate, and I'm having vegetables, I'm having a couple of olives over here, whatever. Or it could be like, you know what, I was looking for something smaller and it was equally delicious to me. And it ended up being, a sushi roll and some soup and a tea or whatever. So I think we can bust up some of the things that haven't helped us in terms of talking about meals and snacks, and say, really look at those guidelines as a place where most women are going to be able to assess to see where their nutrition may not be better for them at this point.
So just making sure that when you're eating, you're hitting those basic 15 grams of protein, 15 grams of carbohydrates.
15 to 30 grams. Remember, we got a
15 to
range
30
in there.
grams.
Right, yes,
Yes,
exactly.
at least 15
Yep,
going to 30.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a good point, because I see this all the time on social media, especially with this protein craze. It's like this overnight oats has 45 grams of protein.
Yeah.
And I think we're so programmed to be like the more the better. So I
Yes.
also like that you said that it's not just like the least, it's the cap, or not the
Yes.
cap necessarily, but the range of
The higher end of
30
the
is
range.
good.
Right.
But you want to make sure that you feel okay before you go over that, because I
Yeah.
think people are just going willy-nilly with protein. You know those little things that totally change the game in your relationship, like little acts of service or uninterrupted time together? Add a KY, yours and mine, to that list. Lube is not about fixing anything, it's about enhancing what's already there. KY knows that lube is a powerful, confidence-building part of intimacy, and their yours and mine lube increases comfort and enhances experience for both partners. Think warming for you, tingling for them, and long-lasting moisture that supports comfort, ease, and connection. Whether you're deepening intimacy this Valentine's Day or just investing in a little extra spark this season, if you know, you know. Learn more about KY, yours and mine, at k-y.com. That's k-y.com. If we're not moving anymore, does that mean we don't need nutrition as much? Like, I'm thinking for the people, a lot of people will do a workout in the morning and then by night they're tired from their day. They want to sit and watch TV while they eat dinner. Is that not great?
Okay, so here's the thing. We don't get to work out one time in the day and be like, good, I check it off my list. Our bodies are actually meant to move. I was literally just talking to a colleague about this. She's like, Ashley, the research, like 2 minutes of walking after a meal. I see this all the time on continuous glucose monitors, like blood sugar, back down, going up and down your steps a couple of times. So especially with safety and concerns about like after dinner, can I go outside or do that? If you want to eat and while you're eating, if you want to be seated and watch your television show, then when you finish eating, you stand up and you're still watching your television show and you move. And that's my rule with my patients. It's usually 5 to 10 minutes. I usually don't want them to do a high intensity movement then, but things that we should be conscious of is there are going to be times in our life when we're not moving, So a great example is like we would never tell somebody to sit on a plane for 5 hours and just never move. We're all like, oh my gosh, you could be at risk of a DVT. Get up, move around. Even if you're in your seat and, these seats have gotten like smaller and smaller and smaller. So, but like I just still try to move a little bit side to side or like I'll bend my head forward, or that kind of thing, or step up. When somebody gets out to go to the bathroom, if you just step up and then you sit down or you move. And the same thing applies for us during the day from a working standpoint. I think one of the reasons that so many people either had a great experience during COVID or they had a negative experience during COVID. And I shouldn't say during COVID, during the time period where we were stuck at home. There are a lot of things to unpack there. However, one of the key things was I had people that because they weren't in an office said to me, oh, Ashley, from the head up, I was on Zoom. From the below, I was like marching in place. I'm marching in place right now. You kind of don't see it. Or they would say, as soon as I finished with one Zoom, I just, got another and I walked around outside and I did that because I could be outside and whatever it was. Then there were other people that were like, when I was at work, when I, i.e. left the house, I used to be moving around and doing stuff all the time. And now that I'm home, I literally just sat in front of my computer for 8 hours. And I really saw a very difference, not just in weight, but in mood and like, was I drinking more at night? What were my food choices? So a lot of my interventions, because I was very busy during this time period of people being like, help, like, I don't know how to, kind of pivot and do this. A lot of my interventions were, how do we get you moving more during the day? And they're like, well, I can't go to the gym. I was like, you're missing what I said. How do I get you moving? I had one guy that like every time he turned off his Zoom, he had a young kid who was at home also working. I said, all right, dude, pick up your kid up and down, up and down. And that became their game. So it's like these key moments where it was like, how do we interject more of that? And I think that it's really important that we break up with these ideas in fitness as much as we break up with them in nutrition.
Is it, I would guess, based on what you're saying from what you've seen, it matters more not how intense your 60-minute workout is, but how consistently you move throughout the day that makes the difference in your weight?
If you only had 60 minutes in a day, you will have better outcomes by challenging your body, doing a diversity of these, but doing them in snacking moments and especially after you eat. Now, sometimes it can be helpful before you eat because it stimulates a little bit of like, now I feel hungry or, that kind of thing. Or it helps us maybe from grabbing something because we were actually just bored. And if I go move, I might realize like, oh, that felt really good to get outside. But if we look at the physiology of it, I'd rather you spent the 60 minutes and that you broke it up during the day.
Really different way than obviously people have been trained to look at fitness. And how much is enough? I know you said about 5 to 10 minutes. Like, let's say someone eats dinner while they're watching TV. They want to keep watching their show, but they pace around their living room. They do squats. What are they doing and for how long?
Yeah, I think 5 to 10 minutes is a really good time period. Now, that's also me saying like, hey, let's not treat our race car like a street car, right? And have given it too much to work with. But the 5 to 10 minutes can be very helpful. What I would then encourage you is then when you're sitting down and you're watching TV, like you can also do things like, I had somebody who was sitting and has like, all right, have you ever sat cross-legged? And he's like, that's how I sit. Or maybe he told me that's how he sat. I couldn't remember. And I was like, okay. So you see how your foot's like kind of dangling off the side, like next to your knee? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, just roll your foot. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, just trace a clock. And then we did it the other way. And he goes, wait, Like, that feels good. And I was like, yeah, just now go back to the other side. Or I sit there, like, especially when I was writing my book and you're sitting, it had been a long time since I had just sat and had been typing all that time. Literally every 45 minutes, it was a rule for myself. I was like, you got to move your hands. Like, you've got to move your hands. I was just the first couple of days when I was doing like these long sprints of writing or editing, when you feel that tightness set in, that's your body telling you, it's already giving you a signal that things are not going to get where they're supposed to go on time. We got to think of like that postal service, like get stuff where it's going on time, right? We want to make that work in that way.
And for people who, again, are so programmed of weight loss is so hard and it's so difficult to maintain a healthy weight, and they hear what you're saying and they're like, that feels way too easy to just like move your wrist and to do 5 to 10 minutes after eating. What do you say to that? Why is this the most effective way to have a healthy weight?
Yeah, first of all, I want to be clear. It is hard. The big stuff that's hard is the stuff we have to unlearn. If you get to chapter 4 in my book, even if you don't read anything else, like you probably are going to lose weight because the weight that we are carrying of what I affectionately call the shit to unlearn in the book is so heavy. Like it's just because it's all the stuff that's driving us in the wrong direction. So when we unpack some of that, our shoulders go down a little bit. So the second piece is when the body has created fat in excess or it's put fat in the wrong place. So you could not have excess fat, but you could have visceral fat, especially with the liver and the organs like around the belly area. Here's what I want you to think about. It's like your body took stuff to the storage center, and the storage center is 4 states over and only open on Sundays from 2 to 5. We are so inefficient at fat burning. So I want to be clear that the reason that it feels hard is because literally everything else in the body has to be in alignment for the body to decide to lose weight. That sucks. So here's what I want to say. You can have many non-fat loss wins that we can be happy for. Like I've had people who say, oh my gosh, I'm pooping more regularly. Oh my gosh, my skin looks better. Oh my gosh, I see inflammation going down. Like I have better energy, etc. But they're still like, okay, Ashley, I want to lose this fat. All right. So then what we do is we come in and I look through it and nobody's a hot mess. Nobody's doing all of this stuff wrong. In fact, you're probably doing a lot of things right. So we have to figure out is like how to protect what you're doing right and then identify what's not better. Now, in the majority of instances, it's the crust. And that is why one of the main reasons I wrote this book, one of the reasons I wrote my other book years ago, one of the reasons I've been training doctors for 20 years and other dietitians is that we constantly have to assess and tune up our digestion because our digestion is always going to be suboptimal. Anything that we do, when we experience stress, even really good stress, when we do that HIIT workout, it turns our attention away from our digestion. So we have to really master how to tune up and how to cue into those digestive signals. That's going to be where the win is for weight health the majority of the times. And there's something that's a little tricky in today's world. I love that we are like 40 minutes into this and we haven't even talked about GLP-1s.
Oh my God,
happy.
I know.
Like it's the greatest thing because like every talk, like, and I'm like, wait, she totally gets it. The GLP-1 is a tool, but here's the thing. It's a hormone replacement therapy. And when we use it, it's similar to our own, which is how it works beautifully, but it's dissimilar in that it will really delay our gastric emptying. So it's really going to delay our digestive system. So for the person who is trying to lose fat and is using it for that purpose and retain muscle and maintain bone health, et cetera, if there's already underlying digestive issues and then we go on a medication that's going to exacerbate that, we end up in a worse place. So one of the reasons that I wrote this book and one of the reasons I've been working so successfully with bariatric patients since 2004, when I first learned about GLP-1, because I've been working with people on these medications since around 2012, 2013, and certainly very much so since 2020. When we look at this and that medication is you have got to optimize digestion. I think you've been trying to solve a problem of losing weight and you've been trying really hard by reducing your intake. And what your body is actually saying is like, could you listen? I need help. I need fixing. So the example I would give you is your car isn't starting and you somehow it gets towed to the, fix-it place, whatever. It's got a full tank of gas, it's got air in the tires, and it's got oil in the engine. They are not going to put more oil in the tank or even drain gas from the tank, drain air from the tires, drain oil from the engine and be like, does it work now? But that's what we're doing. They're going to go in under the hood, and this is kind of the extent of my knowledge of a car, is that I believe they're spark plugs. And they're going to be like, hey, your spark plugs aren't working optimally. Well, our weight health hormones, GLP-1, GIP, et cetera, they're your spark plugs. And so if those aren't working optimally, there's no way that the oil and that all the other stuff is going to work. So we've been trying to solve a problem with the wrong goal, the wrong approach. And in doing that on repeat, we've actually been worsening the issues that were ultimately driving it. That's why it feels so hard. I will never tell someone this is simple. I will never tell somebody this is easy. I will also never tell you that it goes away. And I think that's an important piece. This is something that we have to learn to do, and it becomes the work of how we keep our bodies healthy, moving forward.
But we've just been focused on the wrong solution.
Right.
So knowing that digestion is really the crux of everything, that it matters so much, it's obviously become more mainstream, which is great. Most people know take probiotics. We know about prebiotics more, and people are like drinking kombucha, and like gut health is becoming more of a thing.
Yeah.
So for people who think they're doing things right, what are we missing? What do
Yeah.
we still not know about digestion and gut health?
Those are all toppings on a pizza. So that would be like,
Mhm.
hey, I ordered a pizza and it arrived, and you open up the box and maybe there was a little bit of cheese in the box and there's no sauce, there's no crust, and then there was pineapple and pepperoni. And you're like, where's my pizza? So it's
Right.
not going to be delicious. So I think one of the issues is that a probiotic cannot make you gut healthy, no matter what the probiotic is. Now, could it be the tool that makes the difference for you? Yes, it was the tool that made the difference for my body. I had so many antibiotics that not having any of that good bacteria, my body was like, oh, look at this. And that was just acidophilus. Like imagine when it got bifidobacteria, it was so excited. But the other thing that we have to look at digestion in totality. So I go through my book, we have breakdown, we have motility, we have absorption, and we have elimination. So we have to look at all of those, and detoxification and hydration are tied in. So in all of those, there's different resource components, and there's also right orders in which we, want to do the repair work. We want to figure out what's not working, and then we want to have that comprehensive plan. So a probiotic, as an example, take like Akkermansia muciniphila. It's very popular right now because people are like, that's the GLP-1 probiotic, right? And it works with Clostridium and bifidobacteria in the lining of our digestive tract. So note that I just said in the lining of our digestive tract. If your lining is leaky, those probiotics are not going to be happy because they're going to be like, wait a second, I can't stay in here. It's like they're trying to fly in a plane and the door is open. Like it's not working. So we have to repair the lining of the digestive tract. We can do that with glutamine, but here's the kicker. Akkermansia actually goes in, and it's called mucinophilia because it chews up the mucin. That's the mucus layer. It's repairing. It literally is like gluing, as one of the founders had said, it's like gluing the fence together. Okay, now the fence is repaired. So I use glutamine, I might use Akkermansia, but if there isn't bifido in there, and then if they don't have what they need to eat, then they're not going to hang out. Like they're going to be like, see ya. Or if we drink alcohol, if we experience stress, if we go on an antibiotic, if we go on a steroid, if we go on a Tylenol, Advil, aspirin, like there's so many things that we can do that could disrupt that. So when we look at any topping and any tool and we anoint it a solution, like, hey, this is what you should do for your gut health, that's going to be a problem. And the marketing behind it now with these poop tests that are direct to consumer or allergy tests, like, oh my gosh, like I've had digestive issues for 20 years and I did this stool test and it showed me that I'm allergic to almonds and I eat almonds every day. I stopped eating almonds and I'm all better. No, you're not. You might, for the moment, like all your gut was telling you is that it was irritated and what you were currently eating was irritating to it because it's irritated. Great, we've proven a point there. You haven't fixed it. You haven't done the repair work. So what's happening is we've dietized, and the diet industry has expanded from telling us what not to eat or what to eat to now telling us what to test, what to take, what your tests mean. Like all of those lab tests that then send you an AI report and say, you're low in this, you should take this, you're low in this. And oh, by the way, we also sell you that supplement. No, that's not going to work for you. So when it comes to gut health, the good news is it's actually simpler than that, but we have to do the assessment. And so one of the things that I created in my book is I wanted you to have the questions that you can answer. And then based on what those questions are telling you, that's how you can then go optimize. The final piece to that is I do think that there are many times where someone needs a practitioner because today we have things that like mold as an example, or like glyphosate, or you might be celiac, or, just different things. And if we're missing that, then you might be trying all of this repair work and you might not be understanding that you're like around something that's on a daily basis insulting or injuring your digestive system. So you would be like washing your floor with dirty shoes. You're never going to be able to optimize digestion. And that's where it feels super hard because you're like, I've tried everything.
So how do we optimize digestion? I know that this is such a simple question for the answer that we know is so complicated. Like it makes so much sense of like there's different points of digestion. So it's
Yeah.
not just like take probiotics for your gut health and everything's great. You have to check the lining. There's like so many different points
Yeah.
for gut health and different things that might be off. But if someone's like, I'm overwhelmed, maybe they're like, I tell my doctor I can't lose weight and I sometimes feel bloated. And the doctor's like, well, everything looks good. If you have no idea where to start and your doctor's not being helpful, what do we do?
Yeah. And I think this is, again, I don't think this lays with a doctor. This is where a dietitian and someone who's trained like myself is going to probably be a better part of your team. I'm not discounting the doctor on that part, but a collaborator there. And I wrote my book because we needed a playbook. So this isn't like get my book from the library. It should be available. And then also there's a QR code so that you can go and talk to a live human for free. I made that available because I was like, I can't promise. My book has a promise. It says it's the system. It is a system, for optimal weight health, GLP-1 shot or not. I can't say that it's going to do this unless I give you access to humans who can help you find those resources. The key thing to understand is that if you're not breaking food down into the usable nutrients, there are a couple of different ways we could approach this. One, it might mean that we use digestive enzymes to help you break it down because they're like personal assistants for the digestive tract. It could also mean that we blend things. Maybe we have you have it in a smoothie form. It could also mean that we cook things because when we cook it, the cooking process actually breaks it down. It might mean that you need to chew what I call double time, not twice as fast, but twice the amount that you're chewing. So we can look at all of these different things and we can try different things to see how we fix that. But the first thing that we need to know is breakdown the issue. Now, breakdown could be working well for you, but maybe motility isn't working or absorption isn't working. And so that's why it's important. I think the overwhelm comes from not that there are all these different places and how do we do it? The overwhelm comes from being literally on the wrong field with the wrong destination and the wrong playbook.
It is so personalized. Like I forget if I've ever talked about this on the podcast before, but after trying to heal my own gut for so many years, and I learned it was not even like the small intestine, large intestine. It was like the emptying, which I know you talk about in your book, all the different parts.
Yeah.
It was like my pelvic floor muscles were not
Yes.
able to empty enough. And so that impacted the rest of my gut. Like there are so many different pieces to digestion and gut health. And that's what I think we don't talk about. We think gut health, you take a probiotic and it's all about bloating or not bloating. That's like one small little piece of the whole puzzle. So to have the roadmap that you give and being like, this is like the control center that is telling your body to hold on to weight or to not, how it's digesting food, how it's absorbing nutrients. And here is the playbook to help it based on your individual body is the missing piece I think so many people need.
You just brought up such an important thing for us. It's why I love doing a podcast like this. It's why I wrote a book. We have turned into this society of like, I want in 30 seconds, I want to Google, I want to be able to show my symptoms or do this and be like, what is this and what can I do to fix it? By the way, when I say we, like I am we, because like I am right in there. If something is not working, I'm like, what's the quick fix? What? You want me to read? You want me to listen for 45 minutes? I'll cruise the show notes before I'll actually listen. Like my time's worth a lot. By the way, I'm like, that my time not spent watching a basketball game or not spending on Netflix, right? Okay. So in that space, like this is such a gift to have this time with you. And it was really what moved me from, I quit this world. After being in DC, not feeling like I was moving the needle, I literally quit, went to the mountains of Maine. And I was like, I'm just going to be a practitioner and help people and run a company that helps practitioners and patients. And then the agonist came out, so it came out like in such a big way. And I was like, oh gosh, I've got to like step back in with this book. And it's been interesting doing TV segments again, because they're like, you have 3 minutes. And what's interesting is in that 3 minutes, they want me to unpack this entire conversation. They want this, right? And I even said the other day, I was like, I'm good. And I also like with some caffeine in the morning, what is it? Like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock and I have a night caffeine. Caffeine in the morning, like good luck to anyone following me. So you're like, okay, this is like a lot for us to take in. I refer to this as infobesity. And I give you some assessments for how to assess your degree of infobesity in the book. Because one of the things that I want us to stop doing, one of the reasons I think weight loss is so disempowering is we waste resources. And yes, our money, like we have all spent money on things, we're like, oh my goodness. And we think of money as that most precious resource. Your time and your time that you're gifted here on this planet is so valuable. I'm going to add one to the mix, your hope. So one of the things we have to look at is when we go looking for a quick fix, when we believe the marketing, when we believe the Instagram image of this, or, these other things. Like I've had people have told me they bought something because they saw that I was on there talking about, such and such. And like, I bought this and it's going to work for me, right? And I'm like, I don't know. And I even say that I try in all of my ads to say like, I think this could be valuable for you if this and this, right? And again, within the time that I'm given and how they edit me. But I think what we should blame ourselves for, in the beginning, we talked about how we shouldn't be blaming ourselves for, what we should blame ourselves for is if we're buying a solution, we're buying something and saying like, that's going to be that thing for me from someone who doesn't know us, who does not know our why, who doesn't know what is going on with our body. You figured out your pelvic floor stuff by working with somebody who got really curious about you and asked you all of these questions. I figured out my weight health because I went through everybody else. And a doctor finally said to me like, hey, I don't think, like he literally never asked about my weight. I never got on a scale. He was like, did you take antibiotics? He had heard me and he was like, dude, like you are off your rocker. Like if you took antibiotics, this is what's going on. When somebody gets curious about you and your body and actually knows how to help you decode your body's signals, that's where you want to invest. And I think that that's the sort of shame on us should be if we spend resources on all of these things that, somebody was like, well, could Chat GPT just tell me that? No, not even with me as like, and I do AI, but I AI answer until a certain point, until then I will say like, hey, now based on this, you need to go do X with a practitioner. And I think that's where, where it's going to come, as well as practitioners being trained to do weight health, which is a whole other story.
That's so important you say that. I really try to teach my girls, our listeners, if someone's trying to say, this is the thing that's going to change your life, you need this, run.
Yeah.
Run the other way,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to your health. I mean, but even when it comes to like beauty, if
Yes.
it works for someone's hair, it doesn't work for your hair, but especially when it comes to health, especially with weight too, because it's so, like we were saying in the beginning, it's so combined with our sense of self and our value that it really targets. And it's such a vulnerable place that I don't want anyone to be like, okay, I have to spend this money because I need to lose weight because I'm not good enough as I am. So I need all these things. It's like the cycle that becomes, then I feel worse and worse and worse about myself because, like you were saying about your friend, if that diet worked for her and it didn't work for me, what's wrong with me? So knowing that the answer is maybe not the quick fix people want, but it's the honest answer of personalization and finding someone that's going to listen to you. That's the answer. There's no like, here's everything you need to know in a 60-minute conversation, even though that's better than a TikTok scroll. But even this, we're not going to get everyone's answer out of it. It's a starting point.
Starting point.
It's to open people's minds.
Yes.
And then I hope that they take all the information you've given and share it with their doctor and say, I need help with this. And it opens doors rather than being the answer.
Yeah, it's so key. I'm reminded of like as a very young dietitian, I had this also young actress. She was like 18 at the time. Her agent at the time, I was in LA, was like, will you help her? And she's gaining weight and we're about, and to his credit, he said this about 6 or 8 months before award season, but he's like, she's going to be up for like every award. And I just hate that for her. He was a really lovely man. He was like, I think she's gorgeous. She is just going to get shredded on the red carpet. And I was like, okay, we kind of went through all of this. And she just looked at me and she's like, I don't know that I can become skinny. I don't like sushi. And I was like, what? And this was like so long ago. I'm just like unpacking. And so we had to like sit back and I was like, okay, first of all, I don't want you skinny, but I also want you to feel comfortable in your body. So you tell me what that's like. And she was super savvy at 18. She was like, all right, if they say this about me, but her comment was, I don't want this to interfere with the roles that I want to get next. And I was like, let's talk, a little bit about this. And we actually started working with a stylist too. And we're like, okay, what are going to be the right clothes for her? And how are we going to photograph things? And then every time we talked about what she was eating, we talked about a choice that she could make as a result of like, could be the choice. And here's what the outcome would be. And there was a time period where I said, if you do that, I can't guarantee that your skin is going to look good. And she's like, done. My skin looks so good, and it had taken a long time for her skin to look good. So she later sends me her assistant and her assistant's like, I can't get healthy. The actress was paying for the assistant, but she's like, I can't afford to be healthy. And I was like, all right, so now we're going to unpack, right? So there's always these spaces where you turn around and we say like, I can't, because we perceive that somebody else is doing something. Why do we perceive that? Because these magazines, or even today, like the actors or the actresses, they're selling a product and they're telling you that, hey, if you just have my popcorn, or if you just do this, or this is the thing, Oprah. Like if Oprah was like, I went on a GLP-1 agonist and it changed my life. It absolutely did. You have, I know, so many doctors and nutrition and people around you who are helping. That's an amazing tool. And it is the tool that worked for you, but you had a system. It wasn't a solution on its own. And I think that's what we have to just keep leaning into on that part, which is nobody that's out there telling you or selling you something is actually giving you the full backstory of what it is that actually worked for them. Sometimes they don't even know what it is that actually worked for them. I'll come back and be like, so I know you think it was this. I actually think it was this, or maybe it's the combination of these, that kind of thing. So it's really, I love what you're sharing. For girls, it's like one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what you guys do across the board and love that you don't talk about weight loss is let's lean into what can empower you. And really in that space, you're providing access to resources that'll empower women of all ages.
Empower is the key word. It's not about weight loss for the sake of feeling worthy. It's feeling empowered in your own body, that you know what your body needs and you know how to make it feel good. You know what to do if you do want to lose some weight. You know how to do that because you are connected to your body, and that's
Right.
from an empowered place.
Right.
Ashley, I could talk to you forever. Sadly, we're going to wrap up with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
First one, the best breakfast for healthy weight maintenance.
Ooh, okay. So if we say weight health, I would say number one, it needs to be delicious to you. And number two, it needs to be in a form that your digestion can break down. And number three, it's the balance of nutrients that we talked about before. Beyond that, the door is open. It could be spaghetti and meatballs. It could be a smoothie. It could be like any of those things. It just has to meet that.
Great answer. One food you would love to see more people eat.
Oh, I'm stuck. I don't really care. Like, I just want people to enjoy what they have. Is that okay? Like, I'm just like,
Oh, I love that
I'm just like,
I love that.
If it's food, it's delicious.
If it's
like,
food?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. It's such a great answer. What is your go-to coffee order?
Oh, that is, everyone knows this. So I'm a cortado girl, a true cortado. So that means equal parts of the milk or the non-dairy and the coffee. If I'm making it at home, I make it with homemade cashew milk or hemp milk. And if I'm getting it out, I get it with oat milk.
Okay, so oat milk, because now everyone's, like, oh, oat milk is the worst thing you can drink because there's no protein, but you get oat milk when you're out.
Yeah. I'm laughing because at conferences, I walk in, everybody walks out of my session. I deliver a keynote. I'm walking up. I'm like, I would like a cortado with the seed oil version of, dude, I get my protein. My protein is dialed. I just do not put protein in my coffee. It doesn't taste good there. I don't want it there. I do not tolerate cow's milk. I will never have goat's milk again. Most places don't have hemp milk or cashew. And I think almond milk is gross with espresso. So that's oat milk does it. And I have such a small amount, a true cortado, like I'm maybe getting 2 to 3 ounces. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good.
I love that answer. So many people are like so afraid of oat milk now. And so I love that answer. Fill in the blank. If everyone had this one habit, it would change their life.
I would go with, I'm sorry. I think if we started off with a true and I'm sorry, we maybe wouldn't be trying to explore so many other things to make our bodies feel better, like to repair things and do stuff for our bodies. And I'm leaning into a lot of that. I got a lot of people who are going out and doing, and I have nothing against plant medicine. There are a variety of different things, but truly getting in there and realizing our role, like how we may have upset or hurt or, that kind of thing, and asking for true forgiveness. That starts with ourselves. And I have had to do a lot of apology work for my 8 to 20-year-old self because I was really mean to her. So I think it works a lot. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I talk a lot about and practice a lot of inner child healing and giving the 6-year-old love that needed that. And I've never thought of apologizing to maybe the 21-year-olds or the 15-year-old that we were so mean to.
Yeah.
To go back and to apologize is really powerful.
Yeah. I think we can avoid a lot of other stuff.
I love that. Best advice you've ever received?
Oh, it's not what you're eating or what you're not eating. It's that your body doesn't have what it needs to run better.
Genius. And last question, a book that changed your life.
I'm going to give Shel Silverstein a lot of, I don't even know which one, but I guess Where the Sidewalk Ends. And I think that there's something really powerful in short poetry that lands with a child and that also lands with an adult. Over the years, I'm not a parent, but I have nieces and nephews. As over the years, I've sat down and read those with kids. It's like I have those moments, and I guess it could be the same for other books, but that for in particular for me, like Where the Sidewalk Ends, is like I have those moments where I'm like, oh yeah. So I think that would probably be, yeah.
Sometimes the biggest aha moments of our life are in the simplest places.
Yeah, totally.
Ashley, where can everybody get your book and find you?
If my book isn't everywhere, that's a problem. So tell me if you can't find it. That's what I want you to do. Reach out if you can't find Your Best Shot. And for me, I think at this point, it is still authentically me everywhere that one finds people. You'll know if it's me if the curly hair and my dog show up or basketball references, but you can pretty much find me everywhere.
Ashley, thank you so much. I love the way that you're approaching women's health and weight. Thank you so much for this conversation.
I appreciate you.